This is the December 21st, 2021 special meeting of the Cohasset Conservation Commission. I'm gonna have to go on the fly here. Looks like we have a quorum of 4 commissioners this evening. Just quickly do a roll call just to get everyone on the docket who's here. I'm Chris McFarland, I'm here. Eric Eisenhower.
Eric Eisenhower here.
Tom Bell.
Tom Bell here.
Jay Pampare.
Jay Pampare here.
Okay, absent this evening are Commissioners Trish Grady, Kathy Berrigan, and Chris, I can't think of his name.
Will Ashton.
Will Ashton, thank you. And Associate Commissioner Chris McIntyre. We're meeting this evening to consider an application for a certificate of compliance for a stormwater permit issued for 580 Jerusalem Road. I'm going to start by asking the engineer and developer to just tell us what has changed since the stormwater permit was issued, and we'll go from there. So, gentlemen.
Good evening. My name is Sean Hardy, engineer for the applicant, and Jan Hansel is here as well, the owner of the property. We are here basically, I guess, to give more or less an update there. So when the as-built was submitted, building inspector and Charlotte as well saw or noticed that the driveway layout was different than what was approved. It ended up being, it was bigger in square footage of area for the drive, close to, I think it was about 800 square feet or so. The reasoning at the time was, I think, when they were having some deliveries and things like that, there was a car accident that happened out there, and some of the people around, the neighbors were, I think, a little uncomfortable with the layout and with the trucks stopping and things like that. So the driveway layout was revised to, instead of coming in, I don't know if is it worth trying to share my screen? Do you guys want to see?
Yes, please.
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay, so the initial design, the driveway was going to come in, and there was going to be an end right here of the driveway. But what was constructed was a circular to get back out to Jerusalem Road, to keep, when these cars were coming in, some of the vehicles were having a hard time, and they had to back out into Jerusalem Road. And I think at one time, like there was a lumber delivery that was happening. There was a car accident out there. So some of the neighbors, I think, started to complain a bit about the layout, and you know, for safety and marketability, it was revised out in the field. So in order to, and I think you guys saw the calculations when we did this stormwater design, you know, there were no stormwater controls, so the whole site was kind of shedding off-site. And under what was approved, we had proposed and have installed 18 Cultec chambers. The purpose of those chambers was to take and infiltrate the entire roof area through the series of piping for the downspouts, underground piping leading the garage and the back half of the house to these 12 chambers in the back, and the front half of the house to these 6 chambers out on the front lawn. So when I redid the calculations based on the actual driveway as constructed, it still was a reduction in impervious area. The reason for that, it does seem a little strange, but when you factor in the fact that the entire residence comes out of those calculations, it decreases the square footage of what's leaving the site down to, the lot's 24, almost 25,000 square feet, or 24,300 or so. when you pull out the square footage of the house, it drops what's leaving the site down to 21,000 square feet and change. So that's why we still get a reduction in that impervious area. Those chambers were sized in such a way that they were designed to take a 100-year storm with some extra capacity in them and not overflow. So they can still continue to do that. That's why the calculation is still showing a reduction, and why we're hoping that you guys would accept that. I do want to say that the chambers as installed, when they were installed, recently they did sod over the yard, and the viewports or the inspection ports that were supposed to be at grade in the lawn weren't brought up back through the sod. So that's going to be done. I think the ones in the front were started today. The ones in the back will be in the next couple of days. Additionally, the roof leaders and gutters were to be installed in October, but the house is for sale, and the new owner had requested a different type of gutter system. That is on back order along with a lot of the other building supply materials currently now. It's been delayed a few times on that installation. Currently, we're being told it would be next week. Jan is indicating that if you guys wanted, he could install temporary ones as soon as in the next few days, knowing that they'll be taken down and the real ones will be put back up, in the next week or so. But is willing to certainly do whichever you guys were most comfortable with. I think we acknowledge we're not quite complete yet. So there's going to be a little bit of discussion, and what and when you guys would be able to issue that certificate of compliance is kind of why we're here and presenting this.
Charlotte, I understand that you've been out to the site. Do you have any comments?
Yeah, I don't know if we want to still discuss the driveway, but I did notice some other changes from the original approved site plan. Some of them are an additional retaining wall right in front of the driveway on the left side of the house. The other retaining wall on the right side was built per site plan, but John Hallen, the building inspector, also noticed that it was built a little bit past the property line. And then there was a retaining wall that was supposed to be built at the back of the property. But right now there's some plantings along the back. And so there's also, last but not least, there's an also additional retaining wall on the left side surrounding those trees that you see pictured. So just wanted to note some of those changes as well that were noticed during my final inspection. I did talk to Jan about, changes to stormwater plans and things like that. And, the process for just notifying conservation and writing with a site plan with those revisions and stuff. So I don't know if anyone has questions about those that Sean might be able to clarify as well, or Jan might be able to clarify, but those are some of the other changes that I noted.
Well, I'll jump in here, Jay Pimpari. A couple questions. So I did go back and appreciate the revisions of the calculations to see the driveway. I was kind of surprised, as been pointed out, that the calculations post-development are still less than pre-development. So according to our bylaws, that is acceptable. But yeah, my first question regarding the driveway is that, anytime a change of this nature needs to take place, especially the increase of 700 square feet of impervious area, that should really come in front of the board while that's happening, and not here at the 11th hour, so that we're trying to make a potential decision on a certificate of compliance, given the kind of after the fact. So I'm encouraged to see that, but also I probably, if this were in front of me, would have made some condition on the backside of the driveway, maybe a little trench at the end of the driveway there, because as you see, and I can't really read the contours, but I can see the contours, it really drops off. It's a fairly I don't know, steep's probably not the word, but there is certainly a gradient, a significant gradient drop there from the driveway out to Jerusalem Road. And it just continues to go downhill from there and right around the corner down to a terrible area at the bottom of the hill there where Rattlesnake Run comes out. So I probably would have had a little trench design in there to try and capture some water so you don't have sheet flow coming off of that driveway. But again, you know, really, when we have these situations, this shouldn't come in front of the commission at the 11th hour and should be done when when it's actually happening.
Can you guys overlay the original Caltech locations with the existing ones?
I don't know that I can overlay it, but I can show you the two separate plans. So this is as built with the 6 chambers out here in the front and the 12 in the back. And this was the proposed, the 6 out front, the 12 out back. Now the 12 out back did come back further this way, but at the time, there was the previous agent had come out and seen some of these things. And so when those chambers moved back, you know, behind the garage versus behind the house, the new owners were, or the potential new owners were asking the possibility of maybe a future swimming pool. So in the event that that may or may not ask to be permitted, the feeling was it's better to move those 12 chambers behind the garage out of the way at that time. And that was through the previous agent the previous agent did come out and inspect those when they went in.
So like Commissioner Pompera said, that's substantial changes or even modest changes like this would ordinarily be brought before us, so we could evaluate for ourselves what the impact of that might be. I'd note that the new location, even though I don't think you guys have you mentioned that the downspouts are connected? Are these operational right now? I should be asking that. You do.
The chambers are in the ground and the piping is in the ground, but as I indicated, the downspouts have not been installed yet. They're on back order. They're ready to go. You know, the ones that the new homeowner want for the gutters are scheduled hopefully to be installed next week. There's been supply issues, but Jan has indicated that if you guys wanted something in the interim, he could be out there probably as soon as tomorrow to put up something temporary so that it is all going there. Just that, you know, when the ones that have been on back order since October are in, the new gutters and roof leaders will be installed in their place.
So I guess I'm wondering what impact that move has made. Apparently there's been some flooding behind the house recently. And it could be that somehow or other that moved chamber is interfering with the flow of water in the backyard, either in the unsaturated zone or on surface. Can you comment about that?
Yeah, I can. All right. The flooding, so this yard back here, what used to happen is it seems that their stormwater used to come and pond in this area as well on Mr. Hansel's property. When he constructed it, it more or less cut that off from allowing it to happen. So the water that they're experiencing is their own water. But in the interim, on the last couple of weeks, in order to not have, you know, people fighting amongst themselves and, you know, potentially court and everything else, what Jan did with the Daniels, you know, guidance and permission, he excavated the area on their property just behind their house down to get some of that muck and debris that's out of there. And installed crushed stone that would allow that water to get into the ground. and resodded their area and has gotten a sign off from them that it's acceptable to them. The other thing, when he was digging that area, that there was some piping that was found from their house too, that was kind of directing water in that way. So that all now is allowed to discharge into that stone area as well. But as I said, they did sign a release. They seem to be happy with what was done out there. When I was looking at it, it was pretty plain that, you know, they now their low area was no longer slightly higher than the adjacent low area, therefore their water was trapped. So to get rid of some of that muck and debris at that top level and allow that water to get into the ground where it wanted to go, that's what was done.
Thank you.
Excuse me, when did you break ground on the additional section of the driveway? Was I
It
muted?
was a,
No,
Was I
he's-
muted and not heard?
He's got his thinking
Silent.
cap on, he's trying to remember.
I think it was in a spring, late spring, I think.
Of this year?
Yes, yeah.
All right, he seems to remember the spring of this year.
I don't know, I'm sorry, I don't know exact
Yeah,
date.
okay. But my question is very simple. Why did it take 7 months for this to come before us? I mean, this is very clear. Neither of you are beginners. You know this type of thing needs to be approved. We need to review it. This was begun 7 months ago or whenever the date was. And now we're finally getting it at the 59th minute with you here looking for approval. And I think this is the kind of thing which we tend to want to avoid. And I'd just like to find out what the facts are as to why this took place. Because it's an obvious thing. This is not a small oversight. And it's a big project. And if we don't approve it, you're going to be held up. So it's important. So why did it take so long for this to come before us?
It was totally my mistake. I apologize for it. I know I will be doing other projects in a Cohasset. One we basically will be starting soon, and I will never do this mistake again. And like I discussed with Sean, I'm planning in the near future to buy a house for my wife and me in a Cohasset. We really love this little town and we want to move in, and it was my mistake. I didn't know it will be like some issue here, but it's clearly my mistake.
Okay, let me ask you a
I'm
question. Yeah, you are the owner of the property, correct?
I am.
Yeah. And sitting on your left is Sean, who's the engineer.
Yes.
It's the job of the engineer to keep you informed as to when Cohasset regulations are not being followed. Most of the owners that come before us don't have any idea what our regulations are, but it's the engineering company who's responsible for keeping you safe on those. So let me direct the question to you, Sean. Why are we so late here?
Well, I only can know what I see or ask to come look at. And if I'm not asked to come look at it and inspect it, then I don't know about it.
Oh,
Let me ask you a
Who's
question.
who's in charge here? I
Let me
mean,
ask you
you
a
guys have
question.
a
on-
project manager or, you know, I mean, if this is your design and I presume you have some interest in seeing it executed according to your plan. So all of a sudden we don't have a responsible party. Is that what you're saying, Sean?
I'm not saying that. Jan just admit, Jan is the builder. He's the property owner, but he's the developer. He's the builder.
Ah,
He built it.
Okay.
It's for sale. He's looking to close on it. It's an investment property. He's the general contractor.
Let me ask you a question on the retaining wall here. I have got an image of what the retaining wall is and where it goes. Can you put the actual as-built up back, please? Okay. So it looks like the retaining wall there just goes along the property of the Daniels. Why does the retaining wall not go all along the back property of, and I can't read that, the Heathers, or whatever it is? Sorry.
Hefner, Michael Hefner.
Yeah. Why does the retaining wall not continue all along that way? And first of all, what, can you answer that question?
He put those landscaping, the arborvitae's there with a little bit of a bermed up area instead. I think the Hefners were on board with that, and it was just that I think is a minor modification. The wall wasn't intended to be much more than a half a foot to a foot high anyway. So with those arborvitae's there that for additional screening and the little berm that they are on, I think it accomplishes the same task.
Was there a height on the original plan of what the retaining wall was?
I don't believe so, but I'll pull it back up. No, it's just so it was 23, so it was around that same 22. And then if I go back to the as-built.
Can you just blow that up again, please, a little bit?
This one?
Yeah, just to blow that up. Just want to see the grade in the wall. So is that's the 23 contour coming straight across?
Yes.
Okay, can you put the as-built up? And what's the contour there? Can you blow that up a little bit?
Yeah, that's 22.
Okay.
So a little less fill happened back there.
So about approximately about a foot to maybe a foot and a half of fill was not brought in there, and the retaining wall is missing. And again, while it might have been acceptable to the neighbor, we have to look at these plans and say, does the as-built meet what was proposed? And clearly, this is another issue where you're a foot short of fill, which could potentially cause some drainage issues to the abutters, because what I see is a slope here. And when you put the 23 contour straight across, you no longer have that slope, and the as-built looks like it's a flat backyard. But what we have here is not, you've got a foot to a foot and a half of a drop in slope.
Actually 2 feet. There's another contour down there in the southeast corner that I presume is the 21-foot contour.
Right, but I mean, that still is lawn area that's sloping to that same area where it was going to go in a pretty flat pitched lawn. That I don't know is all that much different. And part of why that height was what it was to be above with those, to give the Caltech chambers there. So.
No, I get that, or I shouldn't say I get it. I'm listening to your argument, but I go back to the reason that we have these public hearings is so that interested parties have an opportunity to comment. And as if I were in a butter to the property and I saw the actual proposed plan, I would look at that and say, okay, that's fine. I could actually live with that. And then come to find out a year later, the as-built is in front of us and the owner is looking for a certificate of compliance, and it doesn't look, well, I should say there are modifications that were made during the construction plan that were not afforded due process and allowed interested parties an opportunity to comment. And if I were in a butter, I would take issue with that personally. And as a commissioner, I'm sitting here saying, now I have to approve, potentially I've got to make a decision on whether or not I'm going to approve this, and would I have approved this in the first place? And were any abutters notified? They were notified tonight, but were they properly notified of any of the modifications during the course of the changes? And the answer to that is no. So this seems like another area where there were changes that should have been addressed sometime between the application and tonight, preferably in the spring or the summer when all these changes were made, and not here at the 11th hour. And I'll ask another question. In the front, I see that there are actually 2 trees planted, so kudos to you for planting the trees, but the tree location, how does that tree planting potentially interfere with the Cultec chamber that's in the front yard? It seems to me like one of those trees is literally right over the Cultec chamber. Can you talk a little bit about the planting of the 2 trees, which I encourage and support, but I'm curious to see how that impacts the Cultec chambers with the rooting system of those 2 trees and how far you went down with the ball of those trees.
Which one? I don't know. Where are the trees? You know,
You have
they're
2
not showing
trees.
this plan.
Yeah, you have 2 trees in the front yard, right?
Yeah.
You planted 2 trees that look like they're, I don't know what type of trees they are. They're about 2-inch caliper. They may be 12 foot high, give or take. And
Yes.
they
Yeah.
look like wonderful trees, but it looks like one of the trees is right on top of the Cultec chamber.
It's more that one tree is roughly over here on this
Yeah.
area. Another tree is roughly on over here.
So you don't think that's going to impact that chamber at all when the roots get big and large?
I think it's if I will take its scale, it's probably 8 to 10 feet from chamber.
Okay. Just wanted to point that out. So in my view, I can understand that there's a backlog in supplies all around the countries, refrigerators, et cetera. I didn't know there was a supply issue with gutters. I'm not doubting you there. I'm sorry to hear that if in fact that's true, that there's
It
a
is.
backlog. I'm sure they know there's a backlog in a lot of building supplies. But I find it very difficult to issue any certificate personally myself without at least the roof leaders or the gutters, some form of gutters being connected into a chamber system, whether or not, even if it's a temporary system, really just to alleviate any potential flooding out there at all. So I would really like to see some gutters connected to chambers.
Okay.
When are you?
Yeah, we
Go ahead.
can install the gutters tomorrow. That's basically like,
I think installing your Cultec chambers 8+ feet from a large tree is an unsound method of construction. I've seen roots expand in many, many directions, and I think you're really asking for trouble when you do something like that. I don't know what the Cultec specification is. Let me ask you. Cultec recommends what distance from large trees for their chambers? What is their spec?
I haven't seen anything like that. I mean, generally these are in stone and wrapped in filter fabric. So as far as the roots or seeking nutrients, that's not really ideal. I have not seen that has been an issue with chamber systems that I've seen installed. They're generally, they're seeking, food and nutrients. Granted, it's a source where there's water and moisture, but to get through the gravel and the filter fabric and into the plastic chamber, I haven't seen that that's happened or caused a problem in the past.
Have you ever dug one of these up 5 or 8 years later?
I haven't dug them up, and the reason being is the number of ones that I've designed and have had installed haven't had reason to be dug up. They're still all functioning. I don't know that I've ever seen one fail.
Well, it's hard to say you've never seen roots if you've never dug one up. I mean, I can accept that you haven't seen one fail, but I think the statement that you've never seen roots when they're being put in, well, that wouldn't be surprised at that. They haven't had a chance to grow there.
Right, but I mean, to go in someone's yard and say, I'm going to dig up your Caltech chambers that aren't failing is not,
I'm not
Something
asking,
anyone's
I'm not
gonna-
asking you to do that. I wouldn't expect you to do that. But you've made a statement that essentially you're trying to convince us that you've never seen roots grow into one of these, but you've never actually looked at one to see if they have grown into it. You haven't had no reason to, but you see that's illogical what you're saying.
Let me ask you a question on the inspection ports. You mentioned that the fresh sod was brought in. How are the inspection ports visible now?
the ones out front, the contractor was there this afternoon to try and bring those up, and the ones in the back, he's going to be back, so they will be. So currently it's the plastic pipe sticking up with the screw cap on it.
Yeah.
And so the sod, we have the tie, the dimension ties to them. So they're also going to be brought up. The attempt was today for the front, but shortest day of the year. He's going to get back there tomorrow, and he's going to do that as well.
Okay. And so when is the property looking to be transferred? When is the potential closing date?
We have it scheduled for Monday next week.
And is the building department have they issued yet a certificate of occupancy yet?
Not yet, because they waiting basically for signed off from you.
From conservation?
Yep.
So looking at this, in my view, there are a couple of issues. Is clearly the downspouts are a major issue on my part. And getting some downspouts connected, even if they're temporary, that's fine. It doesn't really care what color they look like and what shape they are, as long as the roof drains, etc., are connected into the Caltech chambers and not, or the infiltration system, and not just having flowing onto the ground would be obviously a huge benefit. That's the sole reason that the Caltech chambers were designed and installed.
May I read you something written by Caltech?
Sure.
We
Well,
do
now
not.
you can ask the chair.
I will enter it into the record. Question is to Caltech: can I plant trees and bushes over the stormwater management system? Caltech's answer: we do not recommend that you plant trees or large bushes over the top of the Caltech stormwater management system or up to 10 to 15 feet away from the bed perimeter. The tree and plant roots may interfere with the system's efficiency. I'm a beginner and I dug that up on the web. I think that's an issue you're going to have to look into.
I can move that one tree, what is roughly 10 foot, 8 to 10 foot from chamber. I can move it a little bit closer to the returning wall.
Let me ask you a question. What is your technical background in determining where Caltech chambers can be placed? Because I'm not an engineer, and I just got this from Caltech. You're a builder. Presumably you already know this stuff. So I'm very surprised that you're caught out on this whole question of where these chambers can be inserted in relation to large trees. I know you can move it. It's easy to move anything, but I'm beginning to have questions about this whole project.
Oh, that's why I put it 10 foot from the chamber.
How large were those arborvitaes get along the stone wall along the south? They're pretty close to a Caltech chamber. How tall, what's what variety of arborvitae are those? Are they going to be just 5 feet or 20 feet when they mature?
Those
In that shade, they'll be 5 feet.
Shade?
Shade, yes,
Oh, shape or shade?
shade.
I see. Okay.
Arborvitae like full sun. Those won't do very well.
Is that shady there? I mean,
Yes,
there are other trees there.
no, it's not a trees.
There's no other trees? There are or they aren't?
Mr. Chairman, this is a participant. I don't know if the participant has any questions at all. If anyone in the audience has any questions and they would like them raised, please do that through the Q&A.
so just for the record, I'd like to just say that the back lawn is obviously steeper than it was in the original drawings. The additional leg of the driveway is quite steep, probably going to dump some water into the road. Luckily, there's a catch basin there, but it was not what was expected at the original review. The grades have been changed around the 2 existing trees to the left side of the garage, or if you're facing from the road, the right side of the garage. Whenever I see retaining walls well within the drip line of the trees, it concerns me that those trees probably won't live a very long life, depending on how far they actually excavated to create that stone wall. But I assume it's enough to support the grades. As Mr. Campari said, the Cultex system's not connected. At very least, it needs to be connected. There would certainly have been suggestions, recommendations, maybe even directives that would have gone along with this plan had it been presented in this fashion. And I guess the question now is whether or not the numbers meet the requirements or whether or not they don't. So I don't see our other participant having put anything into the chat or raising their hands. So question now is how do we move forward with this? We can take a vote. Unfortunately, I don't know if we really have a mechanism for having a vote that would be positive and yet still allowing the or conditioning certain things that have to be done. I guess we could have Charlotte inspect this again, but it's next Monday. So really the inspection would have to take place on, Charlotte, what's your schedule this week?
Wait, sorry, what was that?
What's your schedule this week, your work schedule?
Tomorrow until 4:30. I took Thursday off, but I can inspect last minute if needed. And then Friday is a holiday, so Friday the town isn't working.
So the only way of actually inspecting this work be done would mean that the gutters would have to be connected by, say, 3 o'clock tomorrow.
Or Monday morning.
Or Monday morning.
Well, she still has to issue the certificate. So I don't know. And then I don't know if John is holding up anything on his end because of that certificate or not. So
I think procedurally as well that the commission needs to vote on issuing the certificate of compliance. Charlotte, correct me if I'm wrong, that cannot be issued by the agent alone.
No, correct. It
Correct.
needs a vote.
So it would need whatever work that needed to be done. If the commission were not happy with the conditions that as is now, the applicant would need to make such changes. And then we would need to hold another emergency hearing at a later date and actually formally vote on the certificate of compliance. So Chris, correct me if I'm wrong here, but what I see is your issues are, and I second those issues, is number one is the downspouts obviously being fully connected to the Caltech chambers. And I don't know if anyone else has issue with the backyard. I haven't had a chance to really study it and look at it. I'm not in Cohasset at the moment, but I would have liked to see the backyard fill area be brought in and the elevations changed on that to reflect what the commission actually approved. I don't know how others feel about the retaining wall not being in place there. The original as-built doesn't mention a height, so it's not like we can say there should have been a 3-foot wall there and we wanted to see a 3-foot wall. So that's unfortunate, but I don't know if the addition of that retaining wall and the additional fill would have solved the problem or potentially alleviated any problem of the neighbors, of any runoff, stormwater, et cetera, being running off into the neighbor's yard, and whether or not the existing conditions now satisfy that, so that in place of the retaining wall. I haven't been out there.
Charlotte, do you have any photos of that area?
I do, yeah, I can try to pull them up.
Sean, can I ask you to stop sharing so she can pull that up? I mean, Jay, what I'm hearing is that there's a small berm there that the trees are planted in. The berm should act as a curb to keep the runoff on this particular property.
Yeah, if that's the case, then fine, again, because it doesn't specify, the retaining wall wasn't specified as far as an actual height. So if there is a berm there that would take the place of that, then fine.
I don't see much berm.
What are we looking at here?
The backyard.
Sorry, it was kind of, I don't know if the sound was going in and out, but that was the backyard. I can show you what the trees look like in the back as well, if that's helpful.
Yeah, could you show that whole area, a couple pictures of that, Charlotte, if you have
Yeah.
it? Thank you.
And point out where the Caltech is, please.
Yeah, so this is where the arborvitaes were installed. So the block retaining wall was supposed to go along this, horizontal row of trees. And then the front yard here, I'll pull up that other photo. The front yard is, sorry, I have to
Charlotte,
keep pulling.
can you go back to that picture, please?
Oh, sorry. Sorry, I have to keep sharing individual photos here. So yeah,
Just,
this is,
when you share your actual windows.
yeah. Oh, I could do
Yep.
that.
So on the right-hand side there, is that the retaining wall?
Mhm.
Okay.
Um,
It seems like it doesn't seem like a retaining wall. It seems like the water actually goes over that wall and down into the neighbor's property. Doesn't look like a retaining wall at all to me from that picture.
Well, it's retaining, it's just not retaining water.
This returning wall was higher, but basically this picture was taken after we fixed the neighbor's backyard on number 8 Black Rock.
Okay.
Yeah, this is just an open framework stone wall. There's no grot or anything to prevent water from flowing through all those cracks.
Is this acceptable to the neighbor?
Yes, yeah.
They signed the waiver, right?
They signed the waiver, yes.
Charlotte, can you zoom in at all on those pictures along the back wall, along the back row of arborvitaes? What is actually back there? Clearly, the water's not going to go onto the neighbor's property because it's ledge and there's a steep incline there. But what is back there? Is that a wet area?
It didn't look wet when I was here, but I don't know how that looks throughout the year.
I seem to remember that being a very wet area, at least from the neighbors
Mm-hmm.
from down towards Black Rock. It's a very wet area.
There was
Certainly
standing
gonna
water
be-
there today.
Hmm? There's certainly be water coming down the slope. It's all ledge.
Yeah.
The ledge is gonna shed the water.
Yeah, and groundwater discharge at the base of the ledge as well. There was standing water right about where you're focused now today. Under
Also
all that
some-
debris.
Also something arborvitae don't like.
Keep that in mind, Chris.
Charlotte, do you have a picture? Do you have a picture of the house?
Yes, hold on. Like a certain side or,
I just want to see the condition where the downspouts are not connected.
okay. Sorry, give me one sec. Okay, here's. So here along the gravel stone trench along the back of the house, there's a downspout. I don't know if I can here I can try zooming in.
Oh, yeah, you can see it.
Yeah, so the Coltech chamber is further up from this area, and it should be like right around here. I don't know if you guys
Right.
can see my mouse, but yeah, it should be right after the stairs in this area in the yard. And yeah, the downspouts doesn't look like they're connected right now.
Well, there's no gutters at all to connect
Yeah,
to.
exactly, yeah. And then this, I don't know if you guys can see this other photo, but this was the area I tried to take of the location of the 12 Coltech chambers in the back of the property, at least under the grass, obviously.
Wait a minute, there's no gutters around the perimeter of the roof? No gutters?
There are currently no gutters.
No, not yet.
So I see. No gutters, no downspouts.
So what is the planned gutter for the house? This the one you're waiting for?
The Gutter Pro company basically schedule me for a week between the holidays.
Yeah.
We was planning to put regular gutters, and the buyers choose half round gutters with round, smooth, round pipes, gutter pipes,
Yes.
3-inch gutter pipe, downspouts, and I had a Gutter Pro. They did my other project, what was a black gutters, but typical gutters what we have, and I was waiting for them over the months, and last update what I had, I think last week or week before from Gutter Pro, we are still on a schedule between holidays to do all the gutters basically around the whole house.
Do you actually think that they'll be out next week to physically do that? Do you think they'll be able to get that in?
They prove it to me multiple times because I know I need to have a gutters done, and I was basically try to pushing them to be done sooner, but it's basically based on weather, because they cannot do it when it's rain, and when it's like a freezing or snowing, right? And that's basically that's what they told me. That's multiple times they prove it. They will be between the holidays.
Oh, do you have a picture out front of the tree near the Coltech?
So where I tried to like kind of take the photo angle wise, towards the back, that tree in the back is roughly where the 6 Coltech chamber is.
Yeah.
I think, Jan, you said approximately 8 to 10 feet away from the chamber where that far
Yes,
tree is?
yeah.
Okay.
Thanks for putting the tree on there. It's just that I think it's going to interfere with that chamber over time. Mr. Chair, do you have a list of items, or Charlotte, to for the applicant to address, or can we make a formal
Well,
list of things? Or
I don't see any possible way that he's gonna get gutters onto this house by Monday. So, I mean,
unless they're temporary gutters.
you're gonna put up a Home Depot gutter on this house?
If I will don't have any other option, I will.
Yeah, so wait a minute. Even if it is a home gutter, who's going to put it up there?
I will
Yeah.
have a guys basically to put it there. It will be my guys. My crew.
Your guy, like one guy?
No.
Got a team of guys.
I
Build
I
a
have
house.
no guys.
You can find people to put up a gutter. The problem is it's gonna look like.
Mr. Hardy, what are the consequences if we delay this project a week? Consequences to you?
It's not a week, Mr. Eisenhower.
Excuse me?
It's not gonna be a week, I promise you that.
2 weeks. What are the consequences to you and the project if we put a delay of 2 weeks on this project? Is that better, Chris?
Yeah, that's better.
Mr. Hardy?
Well, I think it's probably better directed at the owner. So,
Excuse me,
Mr.
I'm
Hahn.
sorry. I have the
Yeah.
name Sean Hardy in front of me.
yeah, no, I appreciate that. So
I'm sorry.
he can speak to that.
Okay, excuse me.
What happens if it's delayed 2 weeks, getting the certificate?
We couldn't close the house. That's basically that's the one thing. Other thing is the buyers, the new owners. Basically, they didn't extend it their rental. What they moving out, and end of the month they have their rental by end of December, and they have a moving truck scheduled for 28, basically, to start
So-
moving
So
stuff.
what guarantee do we have that the gutters are gonna be installed in the, by January 15th?
Well, I think
I
the
can-
owner said that he could have the gutters installed within the next couple of days. They're not the gutters that will be physically there for the life of the home, but they will be a gutter system in place to capture all the water. And in my view, I don't care if the gutters are pink, yellow, blue, round, circle, I don't care what they look like, as long as they work. So in my view, as long as the gutters were installed in a timely manner, we could revisit this. And if the owner chose to change out the gutters for something in mid-January or February, that's the owner's prerogative. But if the gutters are installed and they work, I'm satisfied with that personally. My question is, so the gutters seem to be like they're a no-brainer. That's a showstopper for me. It sounds like some of the other commissioners feel the same way. Without issuing a certificate, without at the very least having gutters. My question is, are there any other issues that need to be addressed? Potentially the fill in the backyard, and call it what you want with a retaining wall there, but the additional fill being brought into the backyard, and would commissioners be okay with the current conditions now compared to the current plan?
I would like to have Coltech come in and in a written statement authorize the placement of the chambers close to the trees that we're talking about. I'm convinced they're not going to work, and I'd like the designer and the installer, all right, to authorize that.
Why don't they just move the tree?
Yeah, and the simple
Yeah.
solution to that is just to get rid of the tree in the front yard.
We believe it's the 10 feet that's away, it's supposed to be, but the tree can be gone tomorrow too.
Yeah. I think that could be an easy fix.
And Jay, I don't think the addition of the soil in the back is particularly necessary, considering where that slope goes to and the fact that it's not, I don't even think it's 100% accurate for the drawings, because it looks steeper on the drawings than it actually is out there. It's not very steep. That water's not going to run off that much faster. And I don't think that's a big issue.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. And I also see that it's being directed away from the way the contours are now. It's being directed away from 8 Black Rock Road, which was having a problem, whether it's self-induced or whether this would contribute to it. But I think the contours are actually somewhat better the way they are. My concern is that we have no guarantee that, you know, it's wonderful for to hear that, yes, we can do everything tomorrow, but we have no assurance that somebody's going to come out just before Christmas or over the Christmas weekend to actually do anything. I'm skeptical that would actually happen.
Well, we haven't voted on anything, so we don't have, that's not really up to us to make that happen. I just want to go back and say about in the backyard with the leveling that out. If the owner of 8 Black Rock has signed a waiver, it is acceptable to that back area, then the owner of 8 Black Rock basically has signed off saying everything is fine, then that works for me. So I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
The whole gutter issue, again, I guess that moving forward, next step, there's 2 issues. There's either vote on a certificate of compliance tonight with no gutters in place. I'm not supportive of that. Or having another emergency meeting early next week to verify whether or not the gutters are in place. And if the gutters are in place by Monday or Tuesday of next week, at it, or whenever the time scheduled is for our meeting, then I'm okay with that. So, Mr. Chair, that sounds like you might want to see if we can have potentially an emergency meeting again next week to address this.
That's not, I don't know if that's possible. First of all, because I don't know what other people's schedules are. I know what mine is. It's not possible for me.
It's very unlikely I'll be available early next week.
Yeah. What I would really like is looking at the complexity of this house, it seems to me that the addition of gutters is pretty extensive. And it seems that a temporary gutter system, unless the owner has a great connection with the local gutter company, the likelihood of this thing actually getting done in time is slim. And that's why I asked, is there some way to get an assurance that it'll be done, that this house won't just live without gutters all winter long, and and maybe forever? I mean, that's the risk we're taking here. And I need the applicant to understand that we would be taking a risk based on your word, that this system's eventually going to get connected, and not just eventually, but quickly is going to be connected.
Would the board consider a bond? The posting of a bond?
I don't even know how. We've never done that before, so I don't know if that's even possible.
Charlotte, let me ask a question to you about potential conditions, because really this is a yes or no question, I think, as far as a certificate of compliance. And a partial certificate of compliance, in my view, really doesn't do much of anything, because it's legally, we've been told it's really it's not in anyone's best interest. And in our bylaws, I did see the language there where it says that the bylaws strongly discourage partial COCs because it doesn't really solve anything. And I've never really seen conditions placed in a certificate of compliance either. Any thoughts on any of that, Charlotte?
At least from when I discussed this with legal counsel with conditions of COCs. They said in their opinion, you don't normally issue them with COCs unless it's to perpetually maintain a system. And usually, at least for orders of condition, it's tied to any perpetual conditions to like maintain like plantings or things like that. But for stormwater, we don't, at least I haven't seen things like that, but legal counsel did say they generally don't have conditions when you issue COCs, except to obviously maintain the system long-term, and that kind of stays perpetual. So I don't know if, I don't know what we'd be able to write to kind of satisfy that. I don't know if we can say that the gutter installation is part of the perpetual maintenance system or something. I don't know. But yeah, normally they don't come with conditions, at least for stormwater.
Mr. Chairman, I have a call coming in from Japan in 10 minutes. I am going to leave this meeting in
All right,
5 to 10 minutes, and you're going to lose your quorum.
All right, well, that's not gonna happen. We're gonna make a decision, but I have to
Make a
read into the
decision
record real
quickly.
quickly. Rick Daniels, owner of BlackRock, he says, I agree to the point that more fill along the back of the yard would not improve our situation. I did sign off on the remediation that was done. If I have a new concern, it is that I wasn't aware that the Cultec chambers were moved closer to my property line. It's not clear what that will do to drainage that affects our property. I think we have to assume that when they were moved, that the same infiltration capabilities of the ground should be able to absorb what that puts out. I don't know if they overflow, where they overflow to.
If I may, they don't overflow. They're designed to take a full 100-year design storm and not overflow.
Okay, so then they would. So would you like to just address Mr. Daniels' concern quickly, because we're going to lose our quorum. We don't want to do it.
Yeah, I mean, they're in the same material that was proposed in that backyard. They did move, but it's the same system. They're at the same elevation. They have the same distance to groundwater, the same infiltration rate. It should not be an issue having them moved like that.
Because all they're doing is recharging groundwater.
Correct. It's designed to directly through stone get water from the roof into the ground.
I think that might be a little simplistic. You're going to build a groundwater mound around that Cultec chamber, and that, even though it's outside of our purview, I guess, groundwater, the fact is that will build a groundwater mound every time it's charged, and then that water, the gradient will be towards Daniel's property. If it were in the middle of the lawn, it would have been towards back on one of the pictures that Charlotte showed, the far back part of the yard, and probably be more likely to discharge along the ledge there rather than on their property.
Mr. Chairman, what are your thoughts about moving forward before we lose Eric at any moment here?
Well,
Lose that quorum.
we have to move forward. We need to take a vote. I'd like to entertain a motion to take a vote to whether or not we're going to authorize this certificate of compliance.
I can tell you, I'm not supportive of that without physically seeing some gutters in there. I don't think I would ever sign off on that. I'd like to think that the builder would have them in tomorrow and the next day or a week, but I feel uncomfortable personally supporting.
The gutters would have to be tomorrow, because unless they're going to move the closing date.
So it's, I mean, I think it would be
When
okay
when is the closing? The 28th?
Monday, the 27th.
All of this could have been avoided, and
Yeah.
and here we are pushed into a corner. I'm really uncomfortable with that.
I would be willing to review this project when the gutters are in place and water is flowing down, and not before then. I'm around this weekend, I'm around next week, give me a call. All right, but I'm certainly not going to sign off now. Chris, not based on a hope of some fallible delivery system for construction materials.
Or installation of gutters by non-professionals.
Yeah.
Well, nobody said they were non-professionals, so.
Are they, a gutter company is a professional, but there was some talk about if he can't get the gutter company over there, then his guys will do it.
Could we potentially get a quorum? Literally, I would like to think it would be a 30-second meeting on early
Monday.
next week, or potentially on Monday. I'm around at almost any time. It would be a 5-minute call if the issue is that the applicant needs to have gutters and we're not happy until the gutter system is in place, and that Monday morning, a site visit could be done. If this needs to be done Monday, or can it be done on Tuesday, or can it be done on Wednesday? When's the latest we could actually have a potential hearing? I'm just trying to move this forward.
I'm around all week. I can be available.
I'm here.
We'd have to post an agenda within 48 hours as well, if we wanted to have it for Monday, so it would have to be posted by, I believe, Thursday. Yeah,
Okay.
But you're not there Thursday.
I can do it. That's
Well,
fine.
somebody could do it.
Yeah, Angela, or I can get someone to, yeah.
You could draft.
I can also do it today. Yeah, I'm sorry, I could do it tomorrow, like tomorrow, and have
You
it
could draft the
posted.
language tomorrow and send it to the town
Right.
clerk to have her post it.
Yeah, I can have them post it tomorrow before I leave on Thursday. Yeah.
You shouldn't post it if the gutters aren't in place. I mean, you should see
Okay.
the gutters and then post.
Okay. So that would
Well-
need to be done by Thursday then, to meet the 48-hour requirement.
You could post a hearing, and and you could also you could always cancel the hearing at the last moment. That's all.
Eric's signing off.
Okay.
Okay.
Gentlemen, the decision is that the gutters have to be in place in order to get a certificate. So the idea is get them up as fast as you can. Charlotte will come out and look at them, and
We'll meet accordingly.
commission will meet and sign off.
And
Understood.
I would encourage the applicant to just talk directly with the agent on the best on timing of this all. Charlotte, I think you know what needs to happen.
Mhm.
And talk to the applicant either offline or tomorrow morning,
Okay.
and see when this can happen, and then the earliest we can get a public hearing in.
Charlotte, you're gonna have to talk to the other commissioners to get a quorum.
Okay.
All right?
Okay.
All right.
I'm off. Merry Christmas, everybody.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Meeting adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you. Merry
Thank you.
Christmas.
Bye.
Bye.